Starting with the ride deck, we've got the Afternoon Dance Lesson Michu, which I really like the art of, so I always play it in all of the lyrical decks as the grade 0 for the most part. For the grade 1, we've got ourselves the new Mermaid Aqua Sedena here, who says when this is rode over by the top idol Aqua, you can Soul Blast 1, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 2 or greater unit from among them, add them to your hand, which is really good for searching out all your specific pieces. It sucks you can't get a grade 1, otherwise this deck would probably be tier 0, allowing you to go into to search out the Yasmin constantly, right? Then we got ourselves the grade 2 here, top idol Aqua, who does about the same thing, but only when you ride over her with a grade 3 mermaid. So that's the race that you can see here in the bottom right. Then you look at the top 5 instead of the top 7, but you don't have to Soul Blast. But it does the same thing. Look at the top 5, look at search up to 1 grade 2 or greater from among them, added to your hand. Then finally we have the grade 3 Kairi here, who just says that when this unit attacks, you Soul Blast 1, choose up to 2 of your rear guards, return them to your hand. Then at the end of the battle, she attacked. If you Persona Road, which, spoiler alert, we can't do in this build, but if you did, you can choose up to 2 cards from your hand, call them out to rear guard circles in different rows. Rows go this way, so you can only call it in front and back. So we're actually playing 2 copies of the grade 4 Kairi, who's actually the main Vanguard for the deck here. She has 2 skills. She says that all your rear guards placed this turn get 5k power. Then if you have a Kairi in your soul when this unit attacks, you choose up to 2 of your rear guards, return them to your hand, then choose 2 cards from your hand and call them out to rear guard circle. You can choose the same cards you put back or not. It doesn't really make a huge difference, but the main thing is that this allows you to get 5 attacks because you can go ahead and use your 2 rear guards that are in the front row here, attack with them, and then bounce them back to your hand to then call them out again to get an additional 2 attacks. We're only playing 2 copies of this because we have a skip rider that allows us to just very easily go ahead and skip into this, and we don't need extra copies of this because we don't want these in hand, and we only play 2 in case one of them goes into damage zone. 4 copies of the colored Bop Dragon Walberia here. This says when it's placed on rear or on guardian, you have to either reveal a grade 4 from your hand, or if your grade 4 is already a Vanguard, you get 2 different effects depending on which circle it's placed. If it's on rear, you can counterblast 1, draw a card, give this unit 10k power, which makes this a really strong attacker, and of course adds your card to hand. Then it says if it's on guardian, it gets 15k shield, which makes this a really good shield because it's the same power as a trigger. This works extremely well with Kairi because of course you can go ahead and bounce this back to hand, call it back out again to then draw again if you have the counterblast, but also if you bounce this back to your hand, you can then use it next turn to guard with as well. It has another skill that says if you discard this for either striding or for riding a grade 3 from your ride deck, you can draw 1 card. So of course that makes it pretty nice if you have no other discard targets. The last grade 3 here is going to be the Radiance Cal Burn, which is an order, a Regales piece that you can use to either draw 2 cards or put itself into soul to counter charge. You get to choose. The counter charge is really nice because you can go through your CB really easily and also your soul really easily, so both of these resources are really nice, and so is the draw too. But the card people play in this slot is usually the Angel Ladder, which is really good in certain meta matchups, so I would play that instead. I just like the Radiance Calburn personally. For the grade 2s, we're playing 4 copies of the Dazzle Bubble Paradise Precia. You use this as your main discard target. This says when you either guard with this or discard to ride from your ride deck, you counter blast or energy blast 3 in order to draw a card. This is the only card in the deck that currently uses energy. So all of your energy is going to go into this. Then it has another skill that says if you Persona Ride, you can do something, but we don't Persona Ride in this deck. We have 4 copies here of the Soaring Bubble Penelope. This has 2 skills. It says during your turn, if you have a Kairi grade 3 or greater, this gets 5k power. Then it says if your rear guard was returned to your hand by the ability of Kairi, your front row rear guard was returned to your hand by the ability of Kairi, you can Soul Blast 1, restand all of your units in the same column as this. So if you attack boosted, you can restand the entire column to attack boosted again. Then if you happen to have the grade 4 Kairi as your Vanguard, you can give your front row units 5k power. So the main game plan you do now with Penelope is you have her boosted by something like a Yuika to then bounce another column entirely, usually the Dragon and the Howlet, which we'll get to in a second. and then call them back out, call out that same column again, and then restand this column. So you get 4 boosted attacks in your turn now. And as I mentioned, we have here 4 copies of the Carefree After Class Howlet. So she has 2 skills. If you have a Kairi, this gets boost and 5k. Then at the end of your turn, you counterblast 1, put into your soul, draw a card, and for every 2 grades of your Kairi's Vanguard's grade, you return a unit rear guard to your hand. So this is really good for obviously drawing you a card, giving you soul. It's also a really big booster because it becomes a 20k booster thanks to Kairi giving everything on place 5k power. But since Kairi is only until the end of the turn and you want to place units on every turn, this allows you to bounce all your units back to your hand. So you can then play them again next turn so you can get that 5k power. Also, it allows you to bounce really key cards like the Dragon that you can use to guard on your opponent's turn, and also the Penelope that you can play next turn, but also to protect her from being attacked into. The last grade 2 is going to be the Vibrant Symphony, which is a blitz order that just says if your Vanguard was hit, you can have this become a 30k shield. So it's a really easy 43k block, which is essentially 2 triggers. For the grade 1s here, we have 4 copies of 2 stars of Horizon Rising in the Night Sky Yasmin. So this is the Skip Rider promo. This says if you have Kairi and your opponents on grade 3 or greater, so you basically always want to go seconds with this deck, you counterblast 1, search your deck, or soul, or drop for a grade 4 unit with Kairi, write it, and then put this unit back into your deck. Then it has an additional 10k shield, so you can guard with this and it becomes a 15k shield. This card is extremely pivotal. If the Rideline here allowed you to search this, you would be instantly set. This is clearly one of your Mulligan targets because you always want to make sure you see this. You want to go second so you can pop this off and then instantly go into your grade 4. We're playing apparently 3 copies of Cooling Heart Yuka. I could have sworn I was playing 4, but this says when another unit in the same column as this is placed, this gets 5k power. So if you play this with your grade 4 Kairi as the Vanguard, she'll get 5k from Kairi's skill. Then if you in the same column play a Penelope, right, then Yuka will then get another 5k, making her a total of 18k. So she's going to be a really big booster. She also says that at the end of the battle, that it boosted a rearguard, you can Soul Blast 1, return that rearguard that she boosted back to the hand. So since the Howlet here can only return up to 2 cards, because it's for every 2 of your Vanguard. So if you're grade 4, that's 2 units, which means you can only return 2 units. Howlet herself goes to Soul, so that's 3 units taken care of. But then you need to either leave an extra unit or you can use the Eureka to bounce that extra unit back to your hand. Leave your board completely empty. The last grade 1 regular unit that we have here is going to be the Clear Shimmer Aqua, who is a 6k grade 1, but she does say when her attack boosted hits, you can retire her, search your deck for 1 order, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this is really good because it allows you to, of course, search out your Calburn if you really need it. It can allow you to search out your Vibrant Symphony if you have no shield value and feel like you need a counterblast and might get hit next turn. But it also helps you search out your Elementaria Sanctitude, which is a PG, which is actually playable in this grade 4 deck. For the PGs, we're going to be playing 4 copies of the Mermaid Idol Ellie. So PG is a Sentinel. It's a card that's short for, PG is short for Perfect Guard, and it perfectly guards the attack. This says when you place this on Guardian, choose one of your units and it cannot be hit, but you have to discard a card from your hand if you have 2 or more cards in your hand. The Elementaria is a Blitz Order version of this. The advantage of it being a Blitz Order allows it to get around certain restrictions that say you can't play cards from your hand to guard. This isn't being, or you can't put cards from your hand to guard. This is actually played, so it gets around that. It's also not a unit, so on and so forth. This one specifically is different from the original one. This one says that when you play this, you have to discard a card from your hand, and you cannot have a crest that is not the energy generator. So you can have any, if you have any crest that's not this, you cannot play this card. Then if your opponent has a crest that is not this, so something like a Stride deck crest, then you can not pay the cost of discard 1. But it just has the original effect of a PG where, for that 1 battle, your unit cannot be hit. Then you remove this from the game. For the triggers, we have here 4 copies of the Fluffy Girl, a crit, then an extra 5th copy here. We have here 4 copies of the effect front and then 4 copies of the effect draw. I'm playing rainbow here. I might end up cutting down maybe one of the draws, but they're just all really good for this deck, right? Crits are always really good. Fronts are always good for the shield value, and you always have your front row. And then the draws are also really good just for the early game, just so you can make sure you see your pieces. I might end up maybe making the fronts only 2 of them, since you don't really do anything too crazy in the early game, and then add an extra kit, but I haven't decided just yet. Then we're playing here 4 copies of a regular heal trigger. You can, make this into an effect heal if you want. I really only like playing the normal effect, the normal effectless heal triggers. And then the last card we have here is going to be the Spiritual King of Bright Skies, something or another. The yellow OT is going to be the OT of choice here. You can use the lyrical OT if you'd like. The red OT is also okay, I think. So is the blue one. I just really like this one because it allows you to retire your opponent's board, which is really good. So it gives you the option to do that. It also allows you to draw a bunch of cards if you check this in the early game, which might allow you to see all of the pieces that you need. So it's just a really nifty card, especially in a lot of lyrical decks because they don't get access to retire, and also because it allows you to draw into your pieces. When it comes to your mulligan, ideally you just want to make sure you see these 2 cards. Because you want to see the Jasmine to make sure that you can actually skip Ride. And then the Howlet, even though you play 4 copies of this, you prioritize getting this because you want to play this every single turn, and then they're going to go into Soul, so you're not going to have it for the next turn. Whereas something like the Penelope is nice to have. You can get through with just 1 copy of Penelope as long as you have the Howlet and the Eureka to cycle it around, right? But other than that, like other cards like the Penelope and the Eureka are fine to have. The Dragon I would kind of get rid of, even though it's a good attacker. And the Aura as well as the Precia are nice to have. The Aura is also extremely nice because it actually gives you some early game pressure and allows you to get some decked in. But really, the main mulligan targets that you want to make sure you always have, if you can, is going to be these 2, and maybe even a trigger. Possibly just so you don't get too stepped on in the early game, maybe get rushed out of the game immediately, since you kind of have to go second and take your opponent's grade 3 turn. So typically you'd like to go second here, go into your Sedena. If you have the Aura, that's kind of nice. That's really the only play you can do in the early games. For the most part, you can throw out other cards, but you run the risk of not having the potential to kill your opponent later on. You can go ahead and search out any of these 3 order options. The Elementar is always, the go-to just to have that in case. Works in really good matchups like, the Stride matchup and stuff like that. The Vibrant Symphony is nice to have if you know your opponent is going to have a really strong grade 3 turn or something like that. And then if your hand is kind of whack, you can grab something like the Cowburn, which allows you to just draw 2 cards, maybe see the rest of your pieces. So you have to kind of have some foresight in order to be able to do that. Ideally, you'll ride into your Aqua and then get yourself some copies of the Precia, which you can use to discard, or if not, something else. But you'll go into your grade 3 here. Assuming you went second, then you'll be able to go use your Yasmin here, put that back into the deck in order to ride into the grade 4 Kairi. Then your typical turn for the rest of the game is going to look a little something like this. You're going to play down your Eureka over here. Is going to get an additional 5k from Kairi's skill. Then you're going to go ahead and play your Penelope in this same column. Eureka, since you played something in a column, is going to get 5k. Penelope is going to get 5k from her old skill. Then you're going to get another 5k from Kairi's skill. You can play the Howlet in the other column. She's going to get an additional 5k from Kairi's skill, then another 5k from her own skill. And then you can go ahead and play the Dragon in that same column. The Dragon is going to get 5k, and you can go ahead and counterblast to draw 1 to get an additional 10k. And this is sort of the attack pattern you're going to have. So you got some really chunky numbers here. So we can combine these 2 for 20. And like I said, instead of you just attacking bouncing front row, calling them back out, and then attacking boosted, you can attack with 4 boosted attacks this turn. So you're going to go ahead and attack with this here, which is going to be a nice 38. Then attack with this side here, which is going to be a nice and chunky 48. Then you can go ahead and use your Vanguard here to swing, bounce this column back to hand, call it back out, either counter blast again if you can or not to get the power, but then you're going to go ahead and soul blast 1 here to stand this side here. And then since you're on grade 4, you're going to get 5k power here to your front row. So Kairi is going to be able to swing in here with 18k and triple drive. And then you can use this now, which is going to be a nice impressive 53, and swing in with 43 here. You're going to go ahead and Soul Blast, one, bounce this Penelope back to hand with the effect of Eureka that you use the second attack, not your first attack. Then you can go ahead and put Howlet into Soul to draw one, and then go ahead and take 2 units. Since your Vanguard's grade 4, you choose 2 units, bounce them back into your hand, and then you can end your turn with no rear guards on board. Then you can presumably do that same exact song and dance again, assuming you have another Howlet.